There are a couple of sure signs fall is approaching. The Red Sox are in a pennant run, our mornings get cooler, and college students start to move back to Boston in droves. Moving trucks will start becoming a fixture all around Allston, Brighton, Kenmore Square, and Mission Hill in the next week or so. Signs are now posted around Boston College, warning residents of the impending invasion and begging for their patience. This will also be a busy time for city inspectors as they try to make sure that thousands of off-campus rental units are safe and in compliance. It was just over 3 years ago that a fire raged in a building on Linden Street in Allston. Boston University student Binlin Lee was trapped on the top floor in a unit that didn't have proper exits. The senior died from her injuries. Since then, the city's made a number of changes in how they inspect these types of rentals. Joining me with more on what's being done are Buddy Christopher of Inspectional Services and real estate attorney Richard Vetstein. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Buddy, let me start with you. What is the city doing now that it wasn't doing a year or two ago to make sure that off-campus housing is safe?
Well, I've only been the commissioner for 2.5 years now, so I can talk about what we've done over the past two years. This is actually my third student move-in. The city mobilizes all of its forces, interdepartmental connections across the board. The initiative is led by the Office of Neighborhood Services. Inspectional Services is a major part of it, the fire department, public works, traffic. We've been meeting for weeks now to coordinate our effort, redefine directions of streets, make sure trash collection is going on. And the weekends of the Great Move-In will have between 50 and 60 inspectors out to be on call to answer any questions that come up.
What about when it comes to making sure that this city ordinance that we've had in the books for a while saying that you can't have more than 4 students living in an apartment, what about making sure that that's being enforced? Because after Binlin Lee died, I remember reading that it had been something like 8 years since anyone was cited for violating that ordinance. Have you guys changed that?
Well, it's technically a zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Just there was technical parts of that that's very important. And that is part of an effort that we've been doing with the universities and the landlords. We have the Student Accountability Ordinance that all of the universities submit to ISD, the residents of all the off-campus students. We use that list and we compile it in such a way that we compare the students from different universities living in the same units. That'll give us a heightened awareness of what units to look at. We use those as a focus, along with community complaints, police reports, and neighborhood complaints. We will then highlight which units we should inspect for that. But the overriding concern always during this process is the safety of all of these college students. Life safety and minimum standards has to be adhered to by the state sanitary code, which is our Bible that we go by.
And just before I get to you, Rich, has anyone been cited yet for having more than 4 students in an
There
apartment?
were actually, in the history that I could look at, there were 2 sightings. One of them got thrown out of court because it was a bad service. The proper owner wasn't dealt with. And the other one, the landlord complied with the violation and moved some of the students out.
Okay, and was the landlord who complied, was that in your watch?
No, that was prior to my being commissioner.
Okay. Rich, let me get you in here. I know you have some concerns with this new approach that the city has taken when it comes to trying to keep apartments relatively small in terms of population. Why do you think it's legally problematic?
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, you're saying that 4 more undergraduates can't live together. Then on the other hand, you're saying, well, if they're graduate students, then you can live together. I mean, I went to law school, and I can tell you that if there are 5 guys in law school, they can be even rowdier as, say, for young ladies going to BC studying library science. And so when you're painting folks the same brush, the same way, it's problematic. We're not supposed to discriminate against people on the basis of, gender or race or any of these type of protected classes. So I just think it's a problematic situation when ISD is trying to do that.
When you say it's problematic, it sounds like you think it might not be enlightened, but would it hold up in court if someone wanted to challenge the city's approach or not?
I think it's debatable. I know there was a case out of Worcester with Holy Cross that dealt with 4 or more, and that was under the rooming house, the lodging house statute that went all the way up to the SJC, and the SJC came down in favor of the property owner. Now the Boston situation is a little bit different, and the standard of review might be lower. It might be a rational basis type review, and obviously the city does have concerns with overcrowding and housing and what happened to the young lady on Linden Street. I mean, obviously that's terrible, but I think there were like 19 kids living in that apartment. So we have the sanitary code, we have the building code. Let's enforce the laws already on the books.
Buddy, I got to ask you, I'm kind of surprised to hear that no one has yet been cited for having too many students in an apartment, in part because I know that you said earlier this year that the city has found a way to make this punitive. That's a paraphrase of a quote that you offered. So what is it that you guys hope to make punitive, if you haven't already, to make sure that landlords are compliant?
Under the zoning bylaw, there is no financial penalty associated with this. And, to be clear, like, students are not a protected class. And when Michael Ross first wrote this ordinance when he was a city councilor, there was very different conditions around it. What we're looking at right now is to take this bylaw and turn it into the rental registry ordinance so that there is a punitive way.
There's that difference you were talking about. Okay.
That will allow us to fine landlords who do this. But again, it's not our objective to pursue fines or violations. We want to solve problems. The student safety is the paramount issue. We have worked very successfully over the past 2 years working with both universities and landlords to mitigate these situations.
The city, I know, wanted to inspect all the rental units in it at a certain point. Mayor Walsh was talking about this. I think it's like 160,000 units that are out there. And I know last year you were struggling to get as far as you wanted to. How are you doing on the inspection front so far?
We're doing well now. That's under the rental registry program. Right now we have 115,000 units, unique addresses registered on our program, and we've probably inspected about 40% of them. We want to inspect them over a 5-year period, and it's a revolving cycle because each year there's a new registration that goes into place.
Do you know what the number is so far this year?
The exact number, no. We're waiting for the end of the month is when we tally everything up so that we can report to the city council.
Rich, briefly, last word to you. If a student might be watching this show right now and think, I'm living or have lived in an apartment that I have some concerns about, or I have a friend who I think is not necessarily safe, what do you think they should do?
Well, I mean, obviously, you want to talk to the rental agent, you want to talk to the landlord, you might want to talk to the school, you might want to talk to your parents. If you're crammed in there and it's a substandard, type of unit, I'm a dad. I would not want to see my, my kid in that type of situation.
Can you say I'm not going to pay rent until you fix this to the landlord?
Technically, you could. You could withhold rent based upon a code violation, and then ISD would come in on the basis of a code violation and seek compliance. Now, the problem is, these landlords who own a lot of units and they're not in compliance, and that, there's 3 or 4 of them out there, and they're the real problems, and they're the bad apples that give all the little ones a bad name.
All right, we got to leave it there. Rich Vetstein, thank you, and Buddy Christopher, thank you as well. Good luck in the coming weeks.
Thank you very much.